to the Scarlet, Blue, and You podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to 2023. I'm Lauren Youse, your Scarlet, Blue, and You host and the HLGU Alumni Director. I'm coming to you from the Burt Studio on the beautiful HLGU campus. And speaking of Burts, my special guest today is Mrs. Katherine Burt, one of the great people the studio is actually named after. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. You taught English in our HLGU English department for over 30 years, and then retired in 2013. You were also our first lady, the wife to President Emeritus Dr. Woodrow Burt, and I'm very pleased that you're actually back on campus this semester teaching.
Well, I'm just having fun with my students. We're covering 5 of the novels of Jane Austen, and they're wonderful students, so it's just a pleasure.
Yeah, they are lucky students, because I know you have a special spot for Jane Austen.
I do.
And there'll probably be lots of tea and lots of making fun of some of her funnier characters. And
we've already begun
with the love.
Yes, we've already discussed Mr. Collins
Excellent.
a little bit, and we'll do more of that. And there will definitely be tea and scones involved in the semester.
Doesn't he just loves a good boiled potato?
Oh, it does.
Such a terrible, fun character.
Great character.
All right, so it's a new year. And maybe you made some new resolutions. And maybe one of those resolutions was to read more. And if that's the case, we are here to help you. We are excited to bring back the Burt Youse book list for 2023. I'm giving you a drum roll. If you can't hear it, I got it on the table. So we did this last year. It was so much fun. So we're bringing it back for 2023. Mrs. Burt, would you like to begin with your 5 books?
Yes, I will. And I'd like to say that there is really no better way to spend time than talking books with Lauren Youse, because she is a scintillating reader, a discerning reader. She always gives me great suggestions, and we just like to talk about books.
And you can see why Mrs. Burt is my most frequent guest on the podcast.
Well, we just come here to have fun, don't we?
That's right. Kindred spirits.
Yes. Well, as I have mentioned to you, the group of books that I have today to discuss, this would not be considered my usual reading fare. These are a little bit more intense and serious than what I normally do. So I've saved one at the end that's a little bit lighter, has humor and interesting personal stories and that kind of thing. But the first few books, if they have a theme, I would have to say that the theme is war, and not necessarily actual war, although 2 of them are set in the Second World War, but wars of different types, and we'll see about how that goes. The first book I'd like to mention is The Warsaw Orphan. It was published in 2021, and its author is Kelly Rimmer, who is a lady from Australia who has published about 9 novels. This book is actually a sequel to a book, The Things We Cannot Say, but it also stands alone because you can read it and enjoy it without having read the first one. Perfect. And I have not read the first one, but it's on my list, because it can't be any more intense than this one. So the plot, this is a story based on a real-life heroine, a real woman during World War II who did what the lead character in this book does, and I'll discuss that in a second. This historical novel takes place in Warsaw, Poland in the 1940s, before, during, and after the war. It tells the story of 2 young people living in 2 drastically different parts of Warsaw during the Nazi occupation. Elżbieta Rabinik, who lives in a nice part of the city, is only 14 years old when the story begins. And she is very assertive and very brave and frankly very nosy, and these characteristics get her deeply involved in rescuing Jewish children who have been confined with their parents and their families within a walled section of Warsaw. This area is called the ghetto, and it's here that about 400,000 Jews are being confined, starved, and horrifically abused by the German Nazis. Besides Elżbieta, who is motivated to help by compassion and love for these families, the other leading characters, Roman Gorka, a 17-year-old boy who lives behind the wall with his Jewish family. Like Elżbieta, he wants to do something, anything, to help. But unlike Elżbieta, his strongest motivations are anger and hatred. Especially understandably. And boy, as you read this book, very understandably. I knew that the Nazis did atrocities, but I had no idea the scope. I knew about the extermination of 6 million Jews, but many, many other innocent people, men, women, and children along the way. It was horrific. His strongest motivations are anger and hatred, particularly for the Nazis. Of course, the paths of these two young people meet, and they have to face the evil brutality of the Nazis, both together and separately. Every day, people in their communities are being rounded up, herded onto trains, and sent to work camps where they're being sent to the gas chamber and killed. Men, women, and children. This is not the kind of book I often read. I had to put it down a couple of times and leave it for a few weeks so that I could build up strength to come back to it, because it's pretty intense. And also there was news coming out of the Ukraine about awful things happening to families. Timing. The timing was rough. To be reading fiction and then seeing it in real life was pretty awful. So I wanted to say about this book, I do love this book. It's a wonderful read. I feel that I learned a lot from it. Though Kelly Rimmer is not noted as a Christian writer, there's a very positive thread throughout the book of prayer, particularly as it relates to Elzbieta, the young woman. She turns to prayer at many points, and at one crucial point in the story, she's joined by another character in a prayer, and the answer comes in a beautiful way. And I think Kelly Rimmer handled that theme very beautifully. In a way, she's contrasting the motivations of love and hate back and forth between these two characters and seeing how that turns out. One thing I really liked about this story is that it's not predictable in any way.
I do love that.
There are many wonderful twists and turns, and when I say wonderful, I mean horrible.
Right.
I mean, the writing is excellent, but the things that happen are awful. It is based, as I mentioned at the beginning, on a real woman who did help 2,500 out of 400,000 people, but 2,400 little ones to escape and be sent to other homes. She kept immaculate records of who they were, who their parents were, and the families that were taking them to keep them safe. Sadly, the vast majority of the parents of those children perished right there behind the wall. In details that I will not share with you. What do I like about this book? Okay, first of all, it is very, very well written. I truly enjoyed her style. It gives great historical details that don't feel that they're just pasted in there. They're an integral part of the story. She has realistic and appealing characters who definitely change, which is one of the hallmarks of good characterization. They change as the result of their experiences. And even in all of the horror and loss that we see in this book, there are still strong themes of love and hope. So that's The Warsaw Orphan by Kelly Rimmer.
Okay.
All right.
That sounds like a good one.
I'll try to speed this up a little bit.
No, you're good.
Although now we have to talk about another World War II book, and this is If I Were You. If I Were You. This was published in 2020. This is by Lynn Austin, who is an American Christian author who lives in Michigan. She has written many, many books, and she's received many Christie Awards for Christian fiction and is in the Christie Award Hall of Fame.
Nice.
This is also a story told in a kind of divided narrative. But in this one, it's not different narrators. We have a third-person narrator who is outside the story, but the chapters occur in different years.
Oh, that's always fun.
It is fun.
Unless it's confusing.
Kind
if
of
it's
confusing.
done well, it's fun.
I think she handled it well, but she didn't use chronological order.
Okay.
So you may have 1931, and then you may have 1948. So
okay.
Lots
so
of
pay
things,
attention.
Pay attention. Many different years, and it's good to know what's happening in all the time periods. So this is a historical novel centering on World War II. It's set in England between 1931 and 1950. It's essentially the story of friendship and rivalry between two girls who grow up during this period. At the heart of the story is the fact that these two girls are from two completely different social classes. And as we know historically, that has been an issue in English society. Social class is central. So Audrey, Isn't that a nice upper-class name?
Yes,
Audrey
lovely.
lives in luxury. She is of the upper class and lives on a beautiful estate with servants. And her two parents, who I have to say are not so great, but at any rate. Then we have Eve. Eve is of the lower class, and she's a scullery maid and the daughter of the personal maid of Audrey's mother. They meet in childhood, and the book takes them all the way to adulthood. Theirs is a very difficult friendship. First of all, because it's frowned upon socially, but secondly, because each girl is deeply envious of the other. And so they're fighting within themselves throughout the book with their feelings of affection for a friend, but also jealousy. Complicating matters is the fact that the scullery maid, Eve, falls in love with Audrey's aristocratic brother.
Oh, well, that's never going to work.
Never going to work, and you can see trouble brewing right there. The major complication in the novel is one that is actually revealed in the very first chapter.
Oh,
so
that's fun.
You're heading toward it throughout the entire book, and you know it's coming, and that is that by 1950, 5 years after the war, Eve has managed to steal Audrey's identity,
Oh.
her place in life, and possibly even her hopes of future security and happiness.
Oh, okay.
What do I like?
That's intriguing.
It is intriguing. What do I like about this book? Well, the World War II details are really wonderful. These girls somehow even get involved in the rescue of soldiers at Dunkirk.
Lovely.
I mean, there's
Got
a lot
boat.
Got a boat. I mean, literally, it was the
That's
family
great.
yacht, and they
Good for them.
get it down to where it's supposed to be. And I did like the two central characters, although I have to say they were both quite frustrating and could be ridiculously petty throughout the book, but they do change. And
Okay.
that's a good thing to watch the growth of their friendship. And I have to admit that I did like the Downton Abbey style of the environment and the insights about the lives of the aristocrats and the servants who work down below in the lower part of the house. So it was an interesting book. Good historical details, interesting characters, and I really enjoyed reading the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good.
All right.
Friends, World War II.
All right, so far we have 2 war books.
Yes.
Why would I include the English classic Wuthering Heights in a war book? In a war
Because
book
it's really
review?
uplifting and happy.
Oh, right. Sure. Sure it is. Well, Wuthering Heights was published in 1847. It's considered to be one of the greatest novels of the English language. So it has a high stature.
language.
The author is Emily Bronte, who lived from 1818 to 1848.
Oh, so this was one of her last.
Well, she was 30 when she died. This
Wow.
is her book.
Okay.
So she published this not under her own name. She published it under the name of Ellis Bell, E.B., Emily Bronte, keeping her identity a secret. As you may know, she was a very reclusive woman who lived in the house with her father, her 2 sisters, and her brother Branwell, who was an artist and had a whole set of problems of his own, but we won't go into that. They lived in the Yorkshire parsonage, not far from the Yorkshire moors, which are a beautiful and yet wild-looking, abandoned sort of place. It's very beautiful. Right in front of their house, you can see it if you look out through their front window, was a graveyard. So if
You've been to their front window.
I have been to their front window. I've seen that graveyard. It's in a village called Haworth, and you have to take a main train, a smaller train, a bus, and then climb a hill to get there.
If you really want to go.
If you really want to go. But it's a fascinating place, and truly a good environment for writing a creepy novel. Do I dare to call the English novel masterpiece Wuthering Heights a creepy novel? Yes, I do. This is a story that covers 3 generations of the Earnshaw and Linton families. They live on the Yorkshire moors, and the central focus is the moody, brooding, Byronic hero, Heathcliff. Heathcliff. He is deeply emotional, partly good, partly very evil, foster son of the Earnshaws. So here's where we get into our war theme, the war within. So he is partly good, partly bad. Heathcliff, did I say Heathkill? That's not good.
Is that revealing something?
No, absolutely not. Heathcliff feels mistreated. He has been adopted from Liverpool, brought home by his foster father, and the family does not treat him well. And he resents it deeply, and this sends him on an intense, lifelong quest for revenge.
Okay.
Complicating matters is that he has fallen in love with his childhood friend.
His sort of sister.
And sort of, adoptive, sort of, kind of sister.
Not creepy at all.
Not creepy, no. Katherine Earnshaw. And that love never dies, even though she marries someone else because she loves money and security more than Heathcliff. So the rest of the story is about love, loss, death, revenge, all of these very strong activities and emotions, and it's a gripping book. I have to say, I don't know of any book that has ever affected me as emotionally as this book, even though I'm not sure at all that this is a love story. I think it's really more of a revenge story, but there is this love that Heathcliff claims will live beyond death. What do I like about it? I like the gothic feel of the story. There are ghosts in this story. Are they real? Are they not? You have to decide that.
Is Heathcliff crazy? Is he not?
Is he crazy? Is he not? I think he always has been, but who knows? But at any rate, it is a gripping emotional novel.
Okay.
The next two books are by the same author. And we get into another modern times book. The first one I want to speak about is a book called All Over But the Shoutin.
But the Shoutin.
But the Shoutin, and that's not shouting, it's Shoutin. This is a work of nonfiction. It's an autobiography published in 1999. The reason I read it is that my mother recommended it to me. In fact, she gave me her copy and said, I think you'll like this. The author's name is Rick Bragg. Rick was born in 1959. He is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist from, yes, Possum Trot, Alabama.
Oh, no, not the Possum Trot.
Possum Trot, Alabama, in northeastern Alabama. He's been a columnist for magazines and newspapers and has won 50 significant writing awards in 25 years, including awards for his columns in newspapers and magazines and 25 books that he's written.
Wow, that's impressive.
This is his autobiography covering his growing up extremely poor in Alabama with his mother, his two brothers, his abusive alcoholic father, who fortunately was gone most of the time. In this book, he expresses his love for his mother, who kept the family going, and his two brothers, who were his support system while growing up in a very harsh environment. Though poverty and his oppressive father made life very difficult, he still managed to develop appreciation for life, the land, his beloved dogs, and all the people who encouraged him along the way to becoming a top-notch prize-winning journalist at the New York Times and the author of several books. What do I like about this? First of all, it feels like you're talking with an old friend in this book. He's honest, he's humorous, and he writes wonderful lyrical prose. Okay. So if you like autobiography, that's a good choice.
I always appreciate you put a nonfiction in the list.
Well,
because I don't read a lot of those.
I know you don't. I remember that, and I always love fiction, of course. But every now and then there will be a nonfiction work that catches my attention, like the next book, which is by the same author, and this is called Where I Come From.
Okay.
It was published in 2020, also by Rick Bragg. This is a well-written book that is comprised of short chapters that are actually columns that he wrote for magazines like Southern Living and some other publications. Although this book does definitely have a Deep South theme, much of its content is universal. He speaks of home and friends, foods, his beloved dogs and other pets, history, celebrations, and nostalgia over good times long gone. Some of the more than 70 short topics that he includes are a pet goat named Ramrod, the glory of pickup trucks, his love for fishing, the value of Tupperware,
nice,
the terror of fire ants, his experience in meeting Harper Lee, author of To Kill a Mockingbird, and having some conversations with her, his admiration for Billy Graham, Where to Find the Best Food in New Orleans, and his terrifying experience of falling into the water while on an alligator hunt.
No, thank you.
So many
I have to skip
interesting, diverse things. Why do I like that book? Beautiful writing.
Okay.
Lyrical prose. Everyone praises Rick Bragg's style. He writes from the heart and beautifully so. Endearing stories, variety of subjects, and very rich imagery. The man can write.
Okay.
So those are my 5, and I can't wait to hear your 5.
Okay. Well, mine did not have a war theme, but when I put the list together, it did kind of have a theme. A theme emerged, and that is animals. And if you would have told 10-year-old me that I was reading a bunch of animal books, I would be disgusted. Because we actually had a rule in my house with my mom. I said, when you go to the video store, no more of those cheesy animal movies. And now here I am putting animal books
this
on
does
my
not,
to-read list.
Does not surprise me in the least.
It's true. The older I get, the more I love anything that's furry that will cuddle me back.
That's so sweet.
Sometimes they don't even cuddle me back, and I still love them. All right, so my first book is called Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This one is fantastic. It's a pretty new book. I did not put the years on there like you did, but it's a pretty new book. It's charming, witty, and compulsively readable. It's an exploration of friendship, reckoning, and hope that traces a widow's unlikely connection with, wait for it, a giant Pacific octopus.
No.
So if you would have said, this is about a dog or a cat or horse even, no. It's about an octopus.
I just knew it was a
widow.
Cat. I just knew it was a cat.
There will be cats.
Okay.
So the book has different narrators, which I love in a story when that is done well, because you get the different perspectives. And one of those narrators is the octopus. Now, it's not cheesy. It's not like the octopus talks to people. That's cheesy. Nobody wants that. This isn't a Disney. This is a real book. And but he definitely has thoughts, and you get to hear them, which I loved. And it's a joy to read. There's lots of humor and heart. It's a lovely story, and I don't want to spill the beans too much. I just want to intrigue you enough to sit down and read this book.
And what's that title again?
Remarkably Bright Creatures.
Thank you.
And that could be like, are they talking about octopi? Are they octopi if there's more than one?
I think so.
Octopuses? Octopi?
I think it's pie.
Or are they talking about humans? Who are the remarkably bright creatures? So that was excellent. So then my second little animal book that I've chosen for the list this year is All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot. I read this a few years ago, and James Herriot is actually the pen name for James Alfred Wright, who is, I don't know why he needed a pen name. James Alfred Wright's a very nice
Lovely name.
But yes, he has a pen name, James Herriot. And he was, these are his memoirs, basically. He's a veterinarian, and he's freshly graduated vet who joins a practice in very rural Yorkshire, England in the 40s and 50s. And it's broken up into little stories about his numerous patients, and sometimes it's his patients and his patients' owners. Some are hilarious, like his overfed and pampered patient Tricky Woo, who is a Pekingese whose owner throws him parties, and Tricky Woo even has his own stationery and his own pillow that he rides around on in the car. So I want a Tricky Woo in my life. He is adorable. And Pekingese, they're those little dogs that look like a mop because their hair goes all the way down. And when they run, they kind of waddle.
Hasn't that dog been on the series on PBS?
Yes. So they've made
wonderful.
This book, these memoirs, into a series, the BBC. And then if you have PBS, you can watch it there.
Yeah.
And I think they're on season 3.
I think they are.
It's obviously popular.
Wonderful
it's
show.
Great. So, and some stories are not so happy, which if you are a pet owner, you know that those times come.
Yeah.
But they're handled in a beautiful way where you can tell that these people really do love animals. But there's a lot of humans in the books too, and they all have really fun personalities. And and you can watch it now on the BBC. You can watch the stories. And just if you do just want cats, he does have one whole set of memoirs that are just cat stories, and they are fantastic. There's also a dog one. I haven't read that one yet. But it's on the list. So that's All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot.
That sounds delightful.
It was a pleasure. My third book is called Stay by Katherine Ryan Hyde. And I just realized that Katherine Ryan Hyde is maybe one of my favorite authors, and I've only read one book. She has like 10, maybe more. So I'm taking them slowly because I want to savor them as they come out. But this is the summer of 1969, which the older I get, the more I love 60s and 70s settings. They are just so fun. So much is going on politically and with families. It's so fun. So 14-year-old Lucas Painter carries a huge weight on his shoulders. His brother's in Vietnam. His parents are fighting. His best friend Connor is struggling with his own issues. And to find relief from all the chaos, Lucas runs. He just puts on his sneakers and he runs. And one of the places he likes to go is the woods. And one day he discovers an isolated cabin and 2 huge, gigantic dogs. And these dogs quickly become his running partners. So he will just randomly run through the woods and pick up these dogs. They will go running, and then he takes them home. And he does eventually meet the dog's owner, Zoe, who is closed off and haunted by a tragic past. And she and Lucas kind of form a connection. They kind of become friends. So this book deals with a lot of tough issues, including suicide, drug addiction, and grief. But the author handles it with such a loving hand and a pure heart. It's the story is told entirely from Lucas's perspective, and he's an exceptional character. He's caring, considerate, wise. He even takes a girl out on a date, and he seems so much older than 14, but in a completely innocent way. Like he's a lovely character, and he's just one of those very special characters who really sticks with you. And this book just hit me in all the right feels, and it's one of the best coming of age stories that I've read in a long time.
Okay.
And it has puppies.
And it has puppies. That's a plus. I'm putting that mentally on my list right now. That sounds fabulous.
Yes, I sold that one.
Thank you.
Okay. My fourth book, still an animal book, but this is the last one, I promise. And then I did a war book, because you have to have one of those. This is called The One and Only Ivan by Katherine Applegate. And this is actually a middle grade children's book. And it was recommended to me by my high school English teacher, who I still talk about books with on a regular basis. And she said, Lauren, you'll love it. It's about a gorilla, and you'll love it. So Ivan is an easeagoing gorilla who lives at the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade. And it's when you think 50 years ago about zoos, how the animals were behind bars. This is Ivan. He lives in not one of those luxurious habitats, but more of a cage. And he doesn't know any different. He's okay with his lot in life, and he watches the humans. And so this novel is written from his point of view, so you get to hear all of Ivan's thoughts, and he even discusses things with the other animals. His life is pretty mundane until he meets Ruby, a baby elephant that's taken from her family in the wild, and she makes Ivan see their home with new eyes. And when Ruby arrives, change comes with her, and it's up to Ivan to make it a change for the better. So it's a very touching story. It'll rip out your heart, stomp on it, and then pick it back up and cradle it, because that's what silverback gorillas do. Is that not sweet?
Okay, that's another one. I'm going to have to borrow it from Will.
And I've read other Katherine Applegate books, and they are fantastic. There is one about an invisible friend who is a 6-foot-tall cat. I would recommend that too.
Oh my,
it's
that
fantastic.
sounds good.
All right. Well, my last book is Lovely War by Julie Berry. And this one's really fun because it's World War I, World War II, and Greek mythology. What more could you want in a book?
Well, that sounds like the whole deal right there.
Right?
Yep.
So Hazel is a pianist, and James is a builder turned soldier. They meet in London dance in 1917 on the eve of his departure to the trenches of World War I. And then Aubrey is a Harlem ragtime musician, and Colette is a Belgian refugee who's lost everything in the war. They meet at a YMCA relief hut at the American training base in France. So you've got those two couples, and then you have Aphrodite, the goddess of love, and Ares, the god of war, meet for a secret tryst in a Manhattan hotel room, only to be caught and exposed by Hephaestus, Aphrodite's husband, who's very jealous, and he thinks he's caught them in the act. So
The Greek gods have come to New York?
that's right.
Wow.
For tryst. And hanging out, yes. So Aphrodite is kind of put on trial in a mock courtroom by her husband, and she spins the intertwined stories of both of those couples that I talked about earlier as of star-crossed loves in a plea to soften her husband's anger. So with the additional testimony from Ares, and you get to hear from Apollo and even Hades, who's the god of death, the god stories explore how far hope can reach into the abyss of wartime, destruction, and despair, and whether in a broken world there's still a case to be made for love.
Oh,
So it's fun because it'll get deep and intense, like you talked about with war books, and then you'll go back to Aphrodite and kind of have a lighter moment with the Greek gods. But it's beautifully written, and it's fun because it's all these different stories happening at once, and it takes you really through history.
It sounds very creative.
Yes, super creative,
Now,
very different.
Of those 5 books, do you have a favorite?
Oh, Mrs. Burt. Oh, I probably Stay by Katherine Ryan Hyde.
Okay.
It's one that I could probably go back and reread
Yeah.
as often as I'd want to.
Well, I'm going to read maybe all of those books. Several
Excellent.
of those books.
I'm going to give some of yours a try,
All
even
right.
though they're not fiction.
Well, two are not fiction, but the others. Do you want to dip into the horrors of war, or
Yeah, what am I feeling?
Or
something light and fluffy.
yeah,
like,
something light and
Yeah.
fluffy? There's not much light and fluffy on today's list except the last one. But
Okay.
your book sounded wonderful. Thank you.
Well, it's a good list, and we will post the list with the podcast so you can
Sounds
see the
good.
books and their covers and
Sounds good.
and have the opportunity to find books. Hopefully, if you go to your library or Amazon or your local bookstore. So thank you so much for joining us today on
Well,
the
thank you
Scarlet,
for
Blue,
having
and
me.
You.
It's always fun. Thank you.
And we always have such a good time.
We
So
do.
we pray as you go out in 2023 that you make your resolutions happen and have a great, blessing, and prosperous year. And remember, please have a song in your heart, preferably the HLGU alma mater, and keep us on your mind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.